All right, everybody, welcome to a special Monica at Home interview edition. Today I have Mr. Gregory Lyons with me, and in the past he was a porn star and he was known as, who are you known as?
Rod Pierce.
Rod Pierce, and Greg just came out with a book called The Seduction of Rod Pierce, which is why I'm interviewing him today. I have not had a chance to read through the book yet, but I've read some bits and pieces, and actually Greg produced a really cool video giving a bit of a synopsis as far as what the book is about. But let's just go ahead and begin. Now, when were you active in the porn industry?
All right, well, I was active from 1980 till about 1982 in both adult films as well as live sex shows in Manhattan at the infamous Show World, which is on 42nd and 8th. So I did the films as well as live sex shows at that time. I was a live sex performer.
Wow, that's interesting, because what's interesting about you to me is that you're from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Were you ever in the LA porn industry, or were you just...
No.
Okay, so yeah, well that's quite interesting, because I don't really hear that much, and I don't even know much about the East Coast adult industry.
Well, the East Coast at that time, I mean, don't forget the period, the 80s. The 80s was producing, the East Coast was just as formidable in producing the major pictures at that time as the West Coast. And we were aware of each other. Like, I worked with people in the East who did both coasts, you know, like Veronica Hart, Vanessa Del Rio. Actually, Vanessa was mostly East Coast too, but Veronica there, Sharon Mitchell.
Wow, Sharon Mitchell was out there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Did you ever work with her?
It's funny enough, I worked with Sharon, but it was a film that never got shot. We met in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. We were on set, we talked, we hung out, you know, I got to know her. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get it together. I got paid, which was nice, getting paid for showing up.
Wow.
Nothing was committed to film because they couldn't get it together for one reason or another. You know, which is not unheard of in porn. I mean, some of these producers are fly-by-night operations. Some of them took the money that was supposed to go to the crew and bought cocaine with it. Or I don't know what the deal was with Sharon. Sharon, that film, I was supposed to play a character named it was like a genie character. I think his name was Omar.
Okay.
I was supposed to be this sexually magical genie. But the point being, I just remember the guy peeling out the money at the end of the day saying, you know, you really should be thankful that we're paying you because you didn't do anything. I said, hey, dude, I'm here. You're paying me for my time. You know, it's New York. That's the New York way. You show up, you pay me.
Hey, well, you know, that's not such a bad way to be, you know, considering how things have changed. But, yeah, okay, so you were a porn star in the 80s. Now, what brought you into wanting to do the porn? What was going on in your life at the time? How did the opportunity arise?
That's a good question. I love that question because it's in my book. But it's also, I mean, the reality of the situation was, it's pretty funny. I wanted to be a legitimate actor. I still do. I mean, legitimate by, you know, mainstream theater, mainstream films. And I had been going to auditions there, but I wasn't getting chosen for the part. I was getting a lot of, you know, last minute before we get typed out and, you know, in the final crowd, and then boom, thank you very much.
Right.
So then I saw an advertisement in one of the trades for a film where they needed high school students.
Really?
You know, extras. Yeah, it said high school students wanted for scene, you know, film. But when I got to the casting place, the office, I said, oh, wait a minute. This is a different kind of film, because there were posters on the wall of other, at that time, popular X-rated films. Mm-hmm. So once I saw the X films, I knew that this was a sex movie. But the part I was auditioning for, the extras, we were just supposed to be on a school bus being students, you know. No sex was involved. But the first thing I said to the director, I said, well, you know, he said, well, yeah, you're a good-looking kid. We want you in the film. I said, well, how do I get the part where I get to have sex with a woman? He says, you think you could do that? I said, oh, hell yeah. Because I was, you know, I'm young, I was horny, and I was just back from the military. I had left the Navy.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I was raring to go. And yeah, and when he he said, all right, then show up at this place on Saturday morning. And it was aside from the extra role where we were just in the bus and playing goofy high school teenagers. And when I showed up, it was a loft in Manhattan, and I worked with, at that time, Merle Michaels and Jerry Butler, who were also well-known. I played a Roman gladiator in a film called Young, Wild, and Wonderful, where it was the rape of the Sabine women. So my first porn scene was a rape scene.
Wow.
It was her first film, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Her name is in the book. I can't think of her name right now, but it's in the book. She only did, I think that was her first and last film. She didn't really enjoy the experience very much. I think it was the come in her face.
That would have been quite the psychological trip. Your first scene, a rape scene.
Yeah.
That's very intense. That's quite the situation.
Well, in typical New York fashion, I mean, it was a big empty loft, but they had dumped sand. I think they went to Coney Island and got a bunch of buckets of sand, and they dumped them on the floor there. That was supposed to be, I guess, the Roman desert. I don't know quite what they were going for, but then they had me with some goofy gladiator outfit on. And Jerry Butler was a very popular actor at that time. He'd already appeared in a bunch of stuff. He was from Brooklyn, but he was a big muscular guy, and there I was, this new kid on the set. But I was raring to go. I was ready to do whatever was required of me. And and that was my illustrious career. And the guy that actually interviewed me, the casting agent, his name was Carter Stevens. You might have heard that name, Mal Laura. Carter is a pretty well-known director. He's directed tons of films in the East Coast, and he's worked with pretty much everyone in the business. So he was the guy that gave me the go-ahead on my first film. And then it just followed. Once you're in one, people start calling you on the phone.
Yeah.
They liked the way I looked on film. So then another guy named Chris Covino called me. It's John Christopher. You might know his professional name. He's a director. And he called me to come be in his film. And then Sean Costello called me. Because, you know, everybody knows everybody in the business. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Oh, yes. It's a very small circle of people.
And once they got a name. And then the real turning point for me was when they discovered that I could read a script. Because most of the guys in porn could just barely read. I mean...
Yeah, you have real acting ability.
Yeah, I had actual, you know, I studied HB Studios with Bill Hickey, a real, you know, he's an Academy Award winner from Prizzi's Honor. I studied with him, so I did Shakespeare. I knew how to read. I knew how to emote, and that was a big plus for me at that time because really, some of the guys I worked with on set, they were dumber than buckets. They were like, duh. You know, you had to point like which direction to put their dick in, you know, because they were like that stupid. I won't say any names, but
no, it's okay.
But the point being, you know, when they found a guy who could actually read and emote dialogue, Samantha Fox, even on set, she was a big porn star, not the singer, but this other Samantha Fox, who's a porno actress, said to me, she said, "Oh my God!" During a scene, she said, "You can really read. You can read. You can act. Where did you learn?" You know, she was amazed. And another guy I became good friends with at the East Coast scene at that time, Ron Jeremy. Now, he went out to the West Coast and made his fortune there. But Ron and I were kind of good buddies. We had kind of a rivalry growing, too, because he was established and he was connected with all the mob guys that shot the film. Because it is mob in the East Coast as well, because I noticed you mentioned that about West Coast.
I do. I'm actually surprised to hear you say that sitting here. But thank you for validating some things that I've been saying that anger some people, but... You know, I'll say what I want to say.
Not the film crew per se, but whenever a producer would come on set, I mean, it'd be this greasy guy with the striped shirt, like, "How's everything going? Hey, everybody all right? All right, that's good." You know, so you knew where the funding was coming from. But I didn't care. You know, I wanted to get laid and get paid and do drugs. So that was
now.
And I got ample opportunity to do all three.
You know, you're just being really real, and thank you. I want to say I appreciate your, you know, candidness and your realness in regards to this.
My pleasure.
Okay, now, when you first started in the business back then, did it ever cross your mind that there might be repercussions later from?
Yeah.
Okay.
It absolutely did. I'll tell you, number one, and in the book I mentioned it, and in the video I talked about it being bittersweet. It was sweet because of the immediate gratification of being in a film. I love movies. I love watching them, And now there was the magic of having the camera and the equipment, the lights, the boom mic that hits you in the ass because he's holding it too close. You know, the whole idea of being in a film immediately. There it is. I'm in a movie. And not just some extra in the background scene. I was the lead role. Yeah. So it was great. But the negative, the bitter, is that it's a porn film. And back then there was a big stigma. Although it was just starting to become, it was just veering a little bit into mainstream because at that time, Sylvester Stallone had just done Rocky, but then they dug up that he had been in a porn. Stallone, I was 18 at that time, and Sylvester Stallone was my hero. That was Rocky. And then to find out he did porn, it was like, oh, I'm just following in my hero's footsteps. But the bitter, again, was that I felt that that would close the doors on me to legitimate Hollywood. They knew that if I was doing porn films, that a lot of people wouldn't even consider me for roles.
But did it? Did it close that door for you, or were you able to?
No, realistically, I don't think so. Okay. Realistically, because the films, number one, they, you know, I don't know how it worked in the West Coast, but in the East Coast, when we would shoot a film, it would be 6 to 9 to a year, 6 months to 9 months to a year before that film would break in theaters. So I had most of my movies under my belt before any of them broke. You know, the people in the business knew who I was because I was working behind the scenes, but none of the films had been brought to theater yet. So I was pretty much still an unknown, except for my live sex work in Show World. I had tons of people that were regulars there that saw me on stage with real women 6 times a day doing the real thing.
Wow.
You know, the real deal. And that was before Viagra. Okay, this was in the days where you just had to put
Some
up
people
or shut
say
up.
that it was Viagra that was really the big game changer, because that's what allowed you know, not to say that you were never a pretty boy, but the more so pretty boys, oftentimes the guys who were the secret lovers of the directors, that's how they were able to get their guys into the...
See, I didn't even know about. I would say
that's just something I heard. You know, yeah.
Oh, I would not doubt it at all. See, but again, I'm really, I have crossed the fence now these days from, you know, from being behind the scenes to just, I'm only aware of what's out there for consumers. But I know it's a totally different market now in terms of like the internet itself opening up. Pretty much anyone with a webcam could be a porno actor or actress because, I mean, there's webcam chat, there's just so many other venues. But, yeah, the only thing, back with reference to Viagra, we had fluffers. I'm sure you've heard the term fluffer.
Yeah, I have heard that term.
There were women that weren't appearing in the film. Sometimes they would appear in the film, but most of the time they were just on set to suck you hard, to keep you erect for a scene. And some guys had problems. You know, I'm not going to lie and say that I never had a problem. The only time I had a problem was in a film called Liquid Assets, because in Liquid Assets, my real-life girlfriend appeared with me at the time. She's on the poster. She's the girl in the middle. She went by the name, at that time, she went by Sonia Sorello. Well, actually, she went by Sonia Gazelle, but they wrote Sonia Sorello on the box for God knows what reason, because nobody pays attention. But I did have a problem performing because I guess I felt that protectiveness on set, because
anxiety. That
because it was my the real anxiety. It was very hard for me to stay hard, but I did. But it was hard. I mean, it was difficult. It was, and directors don't want to hear that because they got a budget. They got you're supposed to be in there. You're a performing dog. Get hard, get in, get pulled out. Give us the money shot. Come on her stomach. And next scene. You know? Yeah. But in every other. But anyway, you know, again, Viagra would have been a nice luxury. I got a little nervous with Vanessa Del Rio when she and I worked one-on-one in Nurse Vanessa. She called me after I appeared with her in a movie called Afternoon Delights, and at that time she was the head of Adult Video Magazine. So,
okay.
Oh, I was so thrilled because I had just seen her. I was starstruck. I had just seen her in a movie called Tigresses with my friend. You know, we were out just watching porn movies in the theater. So I see this big hot Latina up on screen. She's wearing a leopard skin outfit, and she's just doing this guy, but she's really hot. And I'm like, who the hell is that? And he says, oh, you don't know her? That's Vanessa Del Rio. I said, wow. So 1 week later, 1 week to the day, I'm in the Orpheum Theater, downtown Manhattan on the east side, and with Sean Costello, the director. So I'm dressed as a motorcycle rider. He gave me this leather hat. I looked like right out of the Village People, a macho man. He kept calling me Moto Man. So lo and behold, I'm standing there, we're waiting, people are getting the set ready, it's in a theater, and in walks Vanessa Del Rio. She's wearing a pink fur coat, and she's short because I'm 6'2", and she had maybe 5'4".
Well, you're actually on the taller end. I mean, one thing I noticed about working, at least in LA porn, is that it was like land of the little people. Seriously, yeah.
Well, they might have been short here, but they were long where they needed to be long.
Sometimes, yeah. Okay, well, what brought you out of the industry, though? Because from what I was able to find on IEFD, you did under 30 movies, but you know, IEFD isn't always accurate. There could plus you did the live, you know, the live sex show type stuff.
Sex is in the thousands. But
yeah. So, but what got you out of that? What was your transitional period?
Arrested? No.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I got busted like 6 times on stage and show world. It was a standard thing.
Wow.
Detectives would come in, they would arrest you after the show. You and the woman that were up on stage. It was called indecent exposure. It was called what was the other one? Not just it would also be what's the behavior?
Lewd conduct.
Yeah, obscene behavior. They did that one. Then one time they charged me with producing and directing a porno show. Which I was like, well,
this is fascinating. I mean, well, let me ask you, is your book more about the porn period or more so about when you were working doing these live sex shows? Because, I mean, that's such a piece of Americana when you think about it. I mean, it's so interesting. It's not something that I even am really overly familiar with.
Okay, well, now you have to read my book. See, this is an inducement to make you go in because, yeah,
yes.
I deal extensively with the behind the scenes in the show and the mentality of not only the live sex performers, but I was a barker, because Show World is like a carnival that had 3 floors, and on each floor they had like peep booths, then they had the booth babies, if you remember the booth babies, that you go in there and talk they're behind glass. The Tubes did that song, One in a Million Girl.
Yeah. I know that song.
So I was friends with every booth baby. A lot of them became my partners up on stage if my real partner didn't show up, or if they just wanted to come work with me. Or sometimes I would jump in their booth with them on a slow, you know, when things were slow.
That's interesting. I mean, really, when you think about it, webcamming is nothing more than what you're describing. It sure is.
With a web, the guy could literally, I mean, he could touch the glass and the girl could touch it, but there's still that glass.
It's a peep show. I mean, you know, it's so interesting.
You did have was smell, you know, you could actually smell the sex in the air. I mean, you don't get that online. But it's essentially the same concept. Yeah, the guys would direct her. And sometimes a girl would pull me into her booth because a guy said, can you work with that guy? And if I happened to be standing, I was barking. I was essentially, you know, on the microphone to get people to come see my show. But my voice filled the whole place, and I would come up with rap lines like, live sex in the palm of your hand, yeah, come on up. You know, but sometimes the girls would pull me in the booth, and we'd have a one-on-one show, like, for some guy.
It's so interesting how things come full circle. Things, they really do. They really do.
But to go back to your question, what got me out of it? It was, I had a problem with the cocaine at that time, and I was really getting into that, like doing it a lot, and it was messing with my head. And I just knew that, and I was thinking about flying out to California because people said you should go out to California and do a ton of films. And then I heard about John Holmes and how he had AIDS and he couldn't perform on set unless there was a gay guy there blowing him, and he was heavy into freebasing, which is crack essentially, but at that time we called it freebasing. And he was emaciated, and John Holmes was my porno hero. I mean, you know, big dick and his like cool presence on screen. So when I heard that happen to him, and then at the murders, I just said, this is time for me to get out. I said, this is not, you know, you got to clean yourself up, stop with the cocaine. You've got to, you know, the films are not really where you want to be. They're not going to get you in the long run. I mean, it was an ego trip to see my movies in the theaters and see people clap for me and you know, to be able to say, yeah, that's me. But there was the immediate gratification versus the long-term goal. Plus, I wanted to be a family man, and none of that stuff was conducive to that at the time. So I just decided to get out.
Well, I'm really glad that you had the presence of mind at that time to realize that, because you saved yourself. I can really relate to a lot of the things that you're saying there.
I know your story too, and it's very similar. I can't. I didn't find religion. I didn't go the Jesus route, but but because that's just my general thoughts on the universe and who's running the show. I don't really ascribe to traditional.
Well, you don't have to. I'm a Christian, but I'm obviously a very non-traditional Christian. But I think that you know, whatever higher power it is that you believe in does come to you when you're open to listening to it, and you're obviously open to realizing, like, hey, it's time to move on. It's time to go forward. But that leads me to my next question. Why now are you, it seems like you're more aggressively beginning to speak out and try to get your book out there and your story out there? Do you feel like it's just a good time for you? Because one of the things that I did read in regards to your story is that it wasn't until later in life that you realized that, you know, there were all these internet archivers who archived, you know, all your scenes and whatnot. Has it just really been over the past couple of years that you've decided to really open up and tell your story? Or, you know, what is the reasoning behind you speaking out now? Because I think it's great, because I think a lot of men out there need the male perspective. Our media is so about the woman, but we don't hear so much about, you know, the male experience. It's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, much of those things that you mentioned. A good friend of mine is Jennifer Case. I'm sure she won't mind my saying her name, because she's active in that. It's a crusade. It's Crusaders for Women Against Pornography, to get women out of, you know, it's to expose like how the conditions for women are so degrading, and how they get used and abused and then tossed aside. And so, you know, I mean, but to get right to the heart of the matter is that somebody threatened to blackmail me. I do. Oh my God! Really? Yeah. Oh. There was a website called Live Video, and at the time I had over 300,000 viewers, like regularly tuning into my show. You know, just my zany me being like kind of like Howard Stern, this kind of. Okay. Well, you know, later on, tell me the URL of all your stuff that you might want to promote, because I get a pretty big viewership. I certainly shall. I'm what you call a attention. No, a media ham. Well, welcome to the club. I mean, you know, you have to have a certain degree of needing more attention than most people to do porn to begin with. You know, it's okay to admit it. Well, get buck naked and do your intimacies in front of the camera. You can pretty much do anything. But the other thing was that because the threat to blackmail me, this guy was jealous of my show, and he had done a search with my legitimate name, Gregory Lyons, and then Rod Pierce came up and all my films came up. I was totally oblivious. I never was curious at that time. I didn't Google myself. This was only 3 years ago. But I had Googled myself. I just closed the door on it. That was done. It was like an alter ego. It's like I retired that porn and he was dead. I killed him. And I buried him, I thought. Until this guy calls me Rod. And once he called me Rod, I knew he must have, the whole thing fell into place. So I Googled. And I saw there was an internet film database, and I saw my name and all my films and all my partners. But he was threatening to he was bullying you. He was bullying you. And yeah. So to beat him to the punch, he threatened to go to my kids too. Exactly. You have shoot. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh wow. Okay. Okay. But they're all grown now. My well, don't name them. I'm real adamant about not bringing that out there. Well, that's the thing that bothered me the most, because at that time my youngest sons were like 15 and 13, and I was very afraid that they would get the wrong impression and think less of me, that I wouldn't be there. So you decided to own it and take it back. Good, okay. I embraced it. I went out and I said, listen, I did films, you can check this out, this is the names of them. So now you had nothing. Now what are you going to blackmail? Good, well good. No, this is the perfect time then for you to really start speaking out, because I don't know if you... notice, but there's a lot of people coming out. I have my own opinions about being a parent and working in porn at this simultaneously. But just recently, 2020 had Savannah Sampson on with her son. You got Shelley Lubin of the Pink Cross, who was just on a Dr. Drew's show talking about her kids. You got Alana Evans, who was on the same show, coming out talking about how she's a parent. But, I think maybe now it might be just the time for that veil of secrecy to come down because with the internet, you know, you do have a lot of assholes out there trying to blackmail and extort and just humiliate and defame and harass and, you know, whatever else they can do. I mean, I went through a whole thing with Porn WikiLeaks to where, you know, I don't have any kids, but people were trying to link my family members' names to me. Yeah, so I guess it's just time for it all to come out in the open. And I applaud you actually for fighting back, because it's all about fighting back. You got to fight back. So good for you. So that's why you're speaking out now. That's interesting. Now, what would you say to any young man out there? Because I get a lot of these emails from young guys, and you, after this, you probably will too, from young guys saying like, "Hey, I want to be a porn star." What do you say to these young men?
Well, I mean, I would think, like I was talking to my own sons, and I would say, you know, if you want to do it, just beware. I mean, you're going to do it. I mean, a lot of people say they want to do it, then they can't get on in front of a camera and a crew, because it's not just you and the woman. It's not a little intimate moment, as I'm sure you're aware. You know, there's a whole crew standing there, and there's the chemistry. But you got to be aware of it does take its toll emotionally. There's a definite emotional toll. I don't think it takes it. I mean, I'll speak for myself and say it's not as devastating to me as it was to a lot of the women, my co-stars that I work with. Because a lot of them I can see they get drugged up, they get high, they would drink on set, or, you know, I could smell the booze when I was working with them. It's not as emotionally devastating to a guy, but it will be to a certain extent. And the other thing you have to think about is it's there forever, and it will turn up anywhere. I literally had my mother call me one night, my own mother called me, because they did a cut down version. I mean, they did they put it on cable at that time. She's like, "Gregory, I just saw you having sex with a woman." Well,
what was she doing watching that channel though?
That was a little sobering. My cousin called me. He took a girl to a motel one night. He says, "Guess who's on the film, man? I lost my heart on. I can't watch my cousin banging some chick, and I'm in there with a chick." But I would tell the guys to just seriously consider the reality of it. That there's, I mean, aside from the physicality that you can catch diseases, which you can. I mean, they assure you, "Oh no, everybody's tested," but, you know, tested, I mean, how would they know if they were tested the night before some girl picked up herpes or something? Well, and that's a reality.
That is the reality. There is no 100% guarantee.
And it's for life, and it's a gift you don't want. It's the gift that keeps on giving. But you got to think about the emotional toil it's going to take too. Like, are you ready to be seen? Because I'm frozen in those films. That's my 20s. When I'm dead, they'll look at that. Oh, there's that guy fucking that woman.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get more than that out of them, because some of them I actually had dialogue. And like, there's a film called Babe, where I play this Broadway producer who wants to put on a play. And, you know, it had pretty good dialogue. But the point being that be ready for that. Be ready to deal with that. And to be used, pretty much, taken advantage of, because you don't get royalties, you don't get a percentage of the box. About the only person I think might get that is maybe Ron Jeremy, because he was in the production end. But as a performer, you're pretty much a human condom, you know.
Well, actually, look, now that you brought up just the term condom, you know, there's a lot of changes that are currently taking place in the porn industry.
I know. I just saw that.
Yeah. What's your feeling about the condom mandates that are in effect now?
You know, if I said I approved, I would be lying, because I hate condoms. But I understand, if from a professional point of view, it will help to impede the disease. But realistically, as a porn audience, if I put myself in the place, they don't want to see that. They don't want to see it. Who wants to see that?
You don't think that the audience wants to see that? Do you think that they even care? Do you think that a lot of people would even care, or? I
care.
Okay.
I know, if I'm putting myself in the place of an audience member and the guy's got a condom on, I hate condoms. So it's like, oh, fuck, what? What's he wearing the condom? I'm sorry about my language. It's not adult. It's an adult thing. But no, the condom is, it's invasive. It spoils the fantasy. You know, to me, porn is all about fantasy. It's about, you're identifying with the male. If you'll notice, most porn, you'll see a lot of the woman's face. You hardly ever see the male's face these days. I noticed that. They purposely don't show it. And the reason is, I'll tell you, because most of the audience members, I would say, are male, and most of them don't want to see the guy. They don't want to see the guy's face unless they're gay. They don't care. The guy is an object. The guy is them.
Well, I actually have a differing. Well, I totally differ with you on all this, but as far as the condoms are concerned, I'm somebody who's big on that because too many young girls wind up coming out doing only a few films and they wind up with herpes or something.
Yeah.
But as far as the males not being showcased, I kind of think that a lot of males are overly showcasing males in porn. I actually think, yeah, I do. I think
maybe I don't watch enough then.
I don't think that. Well, one thing that I feel is that the Los Angeles porn industry really is clueless as far as what the general populace really wants to see. I think that there is a way to actually increase sales of porn utilizing safe sex measures, condoms and whatnot. But that's for another day for me to talk about.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be submitted to a very precise audience. Maybe it's a fetish too. Maybe there are people that get off more, men and women, get off more by seeing the presence of a condom. I understand and I agree.
But no, I can see your perspective too. I can see how some guys would absolutely not want to see that. I mean, there's a huge market that's all about the cum shot and everything.
Yeah. The money shot.
Yeah, the money. I mean, I really don't know what's going to happen, but in a lot of ways, I guess what I really want to see is, some more accountability and responsibility.
I agree. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you though. Realistically, I think there are so many levels of what people want out of porn. So many different groups and people with special, I guess you could call them perversities, proclivities, very specialized. And as long as that exists, there's going to be every possible imaginative level of that. And unfortunately, it's not unfortunately. Unfortunately, it's a world market, and there's no matter what laws they impose in the U.S., people will try to get around it because they're competing with like Denmark or Switzerland or Holland or Africa or whatever, Hong Kong, China, Japan with that tentacle porn. You see, and the point is they're trying to make a buck. Everybody's competing, so it boils down to what makes the most money.
Yes.
What is the most universally popular sex thing? That's what they'll all want to make. But they're, like you said, a lot of these people are clueless. They're not even in touch with their audience. They're just throwing stuff out there repeatedly. And see what sticks and whatever makes money.
Well, a lot of people really don't have original ideas. That's one thing that, I think that's a common theme in Hollywood. But, let's cut to the present now. What are you doing today? What do you want to promote? Like, where are you at right now?
Okay. Well, no, these days I'm very active in the voiceover
cool.
industry. You can hear my voice as Sylvester Stallone and George Clooney and who else did I do? Mick Jagger in MTV Celebrity Deathmatch.
I love Celebrity Deathmatch. I remember.
That's me in there.
Yeah.
George Clooney was cool because I did my own voice for him.
Wow, that's cool.
Which was nice. And then every once in a while, various different websites where I'm the voice of like how to do your taxes. And I did one for a lottery manual of how to win money playing the lottery. So, my voice will turn up on a lot of stuff.
That's interesting.
I wrote a novel called A Tangled Web, which was actually based on a true story about New York City's BDSM scene.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, it was a real story.
Well, I will definitely put a little link and everything up when I post this. Oh, okay. Well, good, because the whole I don't agree with this other book that's out, 50 Shades of Grey. Have you heard about that?
Oh, I haven't.
Okay, well, I'm so glad we're doing this interview today because this is a really good time for you to get out there with what you're doing, because there's a book out called 50 Shades of Grey, which is all about BDSM. It's like a top seller right now. The View has talked about it. Everyone's talking about it. So, well, give me a little synopsis of what your book is about.
My book is about the beginning. I came out in 2001 when the internet was just starting to become as widely received as it is. Mm-hmm. And it was an AOL chat room. This is stating it. In the AOL chat room, a 30-year-old guy meets his 21-year-old woman. They both live in New York. and they discuss S&M fantasies.
Really?
Yeah. So
Okay.
they decide to take it to the next level and meet in person to have a little S&M encounter. What she neglected to mention was that she has an extremely jealous boyfriend who is her master. And he finds out about this liaison, and then things get really hairy, and she to kind of like, to escape her boyfriend's wrath, she said this other guy tried to rape her. She actually accuses him of rape.
Oh, wow.
Now, this guy, he's a doctoral student, you know, a med student, so this kind of turns it upside down, gets him thrown out of school, gets him arrested, gets him in the newspaper.
Oh my God, I know something, you know, it's so funny that, you know, you're explaining this because I have known a young girl who in real life did something that I witnessed that I realized was not actually a rape. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. And, again, it's not a misogynist book. I'm not hating women. What I'm showing is just how people, number one, on the internet lie. Well, I know you're shocked to hear that. They don't tell the truth about who they are and what they do. The other thing, just people like romance and relationships, and then fetishism, you know, the whole BDSM. I don't glorify it or glamorize it, but I don't condemn it either. I mean, everybody, it all boils down to, you know, do what you like, and as long as it feels good and as long as you're consenting adults.
Hey, let me ask, well, okay. Well, you're just touching on some interesting themes here. What do you think about the presence of a lot of, I don't even know if you would be familiar with this or not, but one thing I noticed from working in the Los Angeles porn industry was that there were quite a few followers of this man named Aleister Crowley, and his whole motto was do what thou wilt or something, and that kind of mirrors what you just said.
He's pretty far out there. I think he was Satan.
Yeah,
I read tarot cards too, and this is the...
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? Well, you know, I right before this interview, for the viewers watching this, right before this interview, I mentioned to Greg that Gene Ross had picked up, you know, the little YouTube clip.
Her story.
I'm not saying that, but you know, he also reads tarot cards, and he frequently does tarot card readings for porn stars. Yes, he does. Yeah.
I don't like Gene Ross because he said bad things about me. He said I look like a bad stunt double for Neil Diamond. And who was the other celeb he compared me to? Or a really worn out Charlie Sheen. So to Gene Ross, I say, hey, fuck you, okay, pal? You want to step up to me? You want to get in my face? I'll pull a card on you, Gene Ross. But anyway, to get back to
Maybe you should. Maybe you should.
Oh,
gosh. But let's see, what else could I ask you? What were you talking about?
You said Aleister Crowley, and what do I think of him? And now Wilt.
Yeah.
So anything goes. I don't agree because I'm a firm believer in positive and negative energy, and I really don't. I don't believe in. I think it's very selfish to think you can just do whatever you want because if it involves someone else, because now you're pulling someone else's soul into it.
Yeah.
And what gives you the right to let's say abuse or exploit?
Well, to try to circumvent others' free will. Yeah.
But on the flip side, then I think of women that are absolutely slaves. I mean, to the point I've been asked, be my master, keep me, beat me, punish me, you know, imprison me. These are women that want that, and there's guys that want that too. With that, I just say, no, I don't want that. I'm not on a power trip. I'm on an ego trip, but not a power trip. I don't need to control someone else. The only person you can truly control and understand is yourself. True. If you have a need to keep these people or to use them, because that's what it boils down to, you're using them. Karma's going to get you.
It really does. Karma.
No, because you have to look beyond your human soul and beyond this time we have here in this life. What about the other dimensions? What about the universe?
Yes.
What about the energy you put out there? You know, I mean, it sounds like flaky and cosmic.
No, well, not to me. You know, you're talking to somebody who's very aware of it.
Some people without consciences feel they act and that there'll be no repercussions, but there are repercussions.
Yes, there are.
There have to be. Just the balance of the universe. You know?
Yes. Well, balance is very important. I actually believe that that's why certain things are happening economically within specifically the LA porn industry, because there have been quite a few things out of balance for a while. But let's see. Okay, so we got your book. It's called Tangled.
There's a book called A Tangled Web. That's my
Tangled
novel.
Web. So your novel, and then the name of the book that prompted me to.
Right. That's The Seduction of Rod Pierce.
Okay, and what else do you have going on, or?
I've got my show on Stickham right now. It's stickham.com/Gregalions, GREGGALIONS.
Okay.
That's on Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's 6 o'clock Cali time.
Cool.
You can see me there. We hang out. I talk about any topic. It's interactive.
Oh, okay.
Anything. Things that are in the news, the economy, men and women, dating, religion. You know, any topic is open. It's interactive. I work with the audience. They bring topics, things they ask me about, and we discuss them. We explore them.
Okay, that's really interesting.
I inject my own humor. I mean, you gotta live. I produced 2 stand-up comedy shows in New York.
Really?
The late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, I had a very successful show. I appeared on the Howard Stern show twice at that time, promoting my show in Manhattan at that time.
Wow.
I work with a lot of people who are big in comedy now. Ellen Cleghorn was one of my buddies. We used to do comedy. Mike Sikowitz, who writes for the Rules of Engagement, he was one of my... Chris Hinchy, the guy that married Brooke Shields, he worked with me.
Huh.
Judah Friedlander stole some of my material, used it in HBO. He said, "Oh, I don't remember that being yours." Yeah, he's the guy that learned rock.
Well, let me ask you, like what kind of opportunities are you open to at this stage? If you could, do any project right now, what would you want to do if you had unlimited funds and you could just do whatever?
Man.
Yeah.
I love that question, because unlimited funds, I'd have my own production company. I'd probably specialize in comedy.
Okay.
I think, laughter is the best medicine. You got to laugh at things. I mean, a good comedy stays with you. They could have poignant messages, but if you deliver the message with laugh, it's a lot more effective than if you preach to people.
Yeah.
Make them laugh, make them see the absurdity of this life. Life is absurd when you think about it. This whole crazy existence, I mean, you got to be able to laugh at it. Otherwise, you'll wind up in a mental institution.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I would have my repertory theater people that I used over and over. Beautiful people that I would invite you to be part of my repertory.
Oh, yay!
But no, I mean, I'm not kissing your ass. Totally, but you're pretty. But what impresses me is that you got something going on here, and that's that distinguishes you from a lot of who are just even like models or just walking.
Well, I don't really want to be in front of the camera so much anymore. I mean, today, later on, but I'm trying to get more into production of things myself. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that I could sympathize there, because I love directing. I love running things. I have a ton of videos on YouTube under Lions Girl. I have over 400 videos there, comedy, and some about topical, relevant topics.
I actually, I was interested in seeing that you consider yourself a truth seeker, or
yes,
yeah. Explain a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. I'll go into briefly. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, I am.
I believe it's not a theory. It's reality.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that a group of people enter into is a conspiracy. They conspire.
Yes.
9/11 was that's what killed me, because I learned, and I sincerely believe that was inside. That was done by our own people. That was done to further the Bush agenda to get us into Iraq. So we killed our own people. But we've been killing our own people since Vietnam, since World War II. I'm disgusted with a war economy. And the United States is built on a war economy. They synthesize wars. Afghanistan is synthesized. Iraq is to get them over there. They use our men and women, as targets, as cannon fodder, to further a greedy elitist agenda, to bring money. The money in Iraq was obviously oil. The money in Afghanistan, you say, well, what about that? Opium. They're making heroin. So,
No, I hear you on that. I personally believe that our most valuable export soon is going to be our own people. I think that our country is
Yeah.
on its way to becoming a labor country. But I
It
think
may-
that
it may
also
very well
one of
be.
our most valuable assets are women.
Yeah.
American women
There's
are
a whole- there's
seen
a
as
slavery
very.
market right now that exists, realistically.
I think that
I'm
porn
sure.
ties into that tremendously. I think that Hollywood and entertainment
Yeah.
ties into that.
I went off on the tangent essentially, but it all boils down to the truth. The mainstream media ignores the truth.
Yeah.
They ignore. They're doing a horse and pony show for the White House. I'll predict right now that Mitt Romney will be the next president. They're done with Obama. They put Obama in the White House to satisfy the minorities. I mean, I'm not making it big. I'm not trying to sound racist, but was Obama a black man? I mean, he's black legitimately. I mean, he's
beige.
Yeah, facially, skin, ethnicity, but his agenda pretty much just kept the Bush administration's agenda going. He put more people in Afghanistan. The economy took a nosedive. So what did he really do? I mean, where's the hope? Where's the yes, we can? You know? And I think he's done. He's outlived his usefulness. And I believe that in America, it's the golden rule. Them that's got the gold makes the rules. Now, them that's got the gold decided to put Mitt Romney in there now because he's going to appease the conservatives. And I believe that. It's sad, but it's disgusting. It's horrible because the mainstream media, there's no investigative reporting anymore. The White House tells them what to say, and that's what they say. And
yeah, it's becoming very controlled.
When the truth gets, there's the film Zeitgeist. One of the quotes is, "It must be very sad those who consider authority as truth rather than truth as the authority." That's my sincere belief. Truth is the only authority. You know, it's like the reality of things. If people stop addressing the reality, then they're in a fantasy world. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Well, let me ask you though. Do you think that the majority of or at least in our country, do you think that the majority can handle the truth and handle reality? Because
you can't handle the truth.
Well, that's the question.
I don't think they can, and I'll say why. I'll say maybe they can't because they've been weaned. They've been bottle-fed, spoon-fed fantasy. Mm-hmm. But can they handle it? Maybe not. Maybe it'll be traumatic. But I'll tell you something. I sincerely believe they have to. They have to be fed. It might blow some minds. It might cause great adjustments. But you gotta wake up. You gotta be shocked into an awareness. You gotta be shocked when you're. If somebody's smiling in your face while they're helping themselves to your tax wages, or they're raping you, but there's like, oh, this is okay, this is what you're supposed to expect, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I'm just tired of people being victimized, and a lot of times they don't even realize they're being victimized.
Well, it takes a lot of strength to acknowledge when you have been victimized for some people. Some people have a lot of pride, but then other people want to consistently be a victim when they're not even a victim. It's a funny thing.
Well, again, and it boils down to the individual. Personally, I want the truth. I want reality. I don't want to be sugar-coated. I don't want to be lied to. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I'm a rebel. My nature is such. I've rallied against authority. I went UA from the military. I left the Navy. I flew away from Italy. I was in a submarine. I just decided enough was enough, and I deserted. And I went to court-martial for that. Well, because I have no belief in the government that doesn't believe in me, in a government that considers me expendable. That would not even think twice. And everybody talks about, well, where's your patriotism? Where's your service to your country? Well, wait a minute. Is that the country that would not hesitate to take my house away from me if I didn't pay the taxes on it? That country, you mean? Is that the one looking out for me? Or the one that would put me in front of an enemy's gun to be blown away and with not so much as the oops? Is that the country I'm fighting for? Country is just a concept. It's passing administrations, The philosophy of the country, the idealism.
Well, I can understand where you're coming from there, but I think at the same time, just to play devil's advocate, somebody would say to you, you're saying all this, but you're still in America.
Yeah, right. Well, love it or leave it? No, how about love it or improve it? Love it or make it better?
Well, I'm a big person. I believe in change. I'm a big advocate for change, and I believe that there is a possibility for a tremendous amount of change, especially right now. But I agree with you. I think
there needs
people
to be.
will
There's
have
too much
to be
suffering. Look at the conditions of things. How
well,
many
people have
are
to be
out there?
willing to wake up. You know, you did touch on, you know, that people have to be willing to, but a lot of people are so afraid to wake up. I mean, since I've been doing my little Monica at Home broadcast over the past few years, I mean, there's so many things that I talked about in the beginning to where people who were viewing me were like, oh, that's wild, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. But slowly but surely, things that I've been saying are starting to come out in the news, and they're like, oh my God, this is true. Yeah. But people are just so resistant to the truth. I just don't know what's going to happen.
It's looking kind of bleak. It's not, you know, I mean, it's I hate to be a doomsayer, but I mean...
You're not the only one.
Right. Well, I mean, the economy, the jobs, the jobs that aren't available, joblessness, people that are losing their homes, you know, taxation. I mean, our poor quality education. I mean, the other countries laugh at us in terms of the level of education that people can expect. I mean, the regular people that don't have money for expensive schools. Yeah. You know, it's terrible. And I think, you know, like people say, well, what about rampant drug use? Drugs are an escape. You know, don't take the drugs away. Zero in on the reason that people are turning to the drugs. Why are their lives so empty that they feel the only thing they have is a drug to escape the wretchedness of their lives? You know, just increase the quality.
Well, I actually think that the drugs are a part of the system to keep people from waking up. Yeah. I think that as far as, you know, the powers that be can push people into depression to where they can still manage to get their drugs, what a better way to enslave.
Well, there you go. That's illegal drugs. What about legal drugs? What about the stuff you see on the commercials every 5 minutes? Like night, all these major manufacturer mood elevators and heart pills and remedies. That's a multi-billion, maybe even trillion-dollar industry. Big corporations, of course, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think is going to wind up happening with the porn industry? Like, let's say that what you're foreseeing as the future occurs. Let's say that Mitt Romney is put into office instead of Obama. Where do you think the adult entertainment industry in America will head?
They might head to the Cayman Islands or something. They might get out of here. Well, because censorship is becoming a major issue. That's something I'd definitely like to speak out against right now. I mean, that, you know, there are quiet laws that are being put into place under the Home Security, you know, Patriot Act and Home Security that are essentially telling people what they can and can't say, and that'll definitely work its way into porn.
It's already happening. Yeah.
And if that's the case, the U.S. porn producer, if he's afraid of his set being shut down and confiscated and being imprisoned, he'll go to Canada or Mexico or you know, whatever country he could fly to and film from there. You've got the internet. That's worldwide. So you can operate from anywhere, and that's what they'll do. They'll leave the U.S. in droves. I'm sure that there are tons of people that are leaving the U.S. now in other areas. And then to compete with what else is available out there in porn, they'll go to other countries. It's all about the money and the market. How much money is being made and what market is the biggest demand. And whatever that is, and I honestly don't know, I haven't done any research, but, you know, let's say it was just straight sex. It was just a man and a woman with no condom having sex. Maybe it's multiples. They're going to just go somewhere that they can shoot that, where they can just do that. And you know, unfortunately, because of the sleaziness of porn producers and that it's mob run and that they use people, the actors and the actresses pretty much should just be used and discarded. There aren't any big, I mean, I can't think of any celebrities that are making any kind of sincere, I mean, big-time money or have a major following that aren't controlled. Yeah, I don't think they're receiving a piece of that. But again, I haven't done enough research into the area. I would say that, like, if there is a big, well-known name for, like, any Janet Jameson that's out there now, that there's somebody behind her. There's somebody manipulating her.
There always is somebody, usually.
Somebody that's taking that money.
It's very rare that you have someone without
and what's happened when the body's no longer useful, when, like, people get tired, and men get tired pretty quickly. There's, like, they want new, they want something different all the time. And once she's done, once she's used up, they toss her aside. You know, next, who's next? And now she's got the memories, and I'm sure the memories haunt. I know for a fact that the memories haunt a lot of these women. I've spoken to a lot of women I worked with in the 80s, the ones that haven't died, And they say, you know, a lot of this stuff haunts them. A lot of the stuff they regret, but, you know, what's done is done. I think of, now, you know, sad story, Candy Barber, who's somebody I worked with. She was in the
Yes,
film, you know?
there was a news story about her recently being found on the street.
They found her dead and homeless in San Francisco.
Yes.
And it was so sad. My friend Mel, the same guy that hired me, Carter Stevens, the detectives called him when they found her body because they wanted to know if he knew her next of kin. Now, she was a beautiful woman. She was a little flaky, she was a little ditzy. I worked with her at Show World Live. We didn't have sex. She was one of the dancers, but she would always try to con me, like, she wanted to go on late, she'd joke around. She was a sweetie, down-home Southern girl. But then to hear, you know, because then I was out of touch with her for like 30 years, and then to hear they just found her dead, you know, on the streets of San Francisco, on the streets as a homeless woman. And I said, oh my God, how horrifying is that? She must have earned millions, literally earned millions for porn producers. And they could have at least put her home or something or looked out for her. She had a son. You know, it's just, it's a horrid story.
Well, you know, I think that's why a lot of things are happening in the porn industry as they're happening, because a lot of people have fucked over others, made a tremendous amount of money off of them, and karma is what's taking away what they had. That's how I see it.
Well, and then rightfully so, and they deserve what they get. Grow conscience, you know. There's enough out there. It's just like you could just as easily be a decent person and have a little consideration for these human beings, these fellow humans, as to just dismiss them and write them off.
I agree.
I think, you know, well, like even Carter Stevens, she lived with him for a while, Candy. He had a home for wayward porn stars, which when, you know, it was like a house where they could just come and live. He wasn't trying to like bang them and stuff. It was just giving them a place to go because he knew a lot of them mismanaged their finances and wound up on the streets or, you know, heavy drug habits, being used, being prostitutes. It's it's horrible to see people treated like human garbage. You know, and that's what we got to realize. We're all in the same boat. Rich, poor, we all born in the womb, end up in the tomb, you know? So it's what you do in the to get rap gangster a little bit there. It's what you do in the meantime. It's how many people you affect. I thought of Gatsby, the great Gatsby. You know, he held these lavish parties in his big mansion. All these people would come, you know, and drink his booze and dance in his mansion. When he died, nobody came to his funeral. Zero. You know, so what does that say? But then, you know, you get somebody like, I don't know, like Mother Teresa. She went and, you know, took care of the most wretched people in the world, but she's world famous. She's historical because she was willing to, you know, help her fellow person. And I'm not saying, you know, you have to be total, but just have a little consideration, you know.
Compassion and treating people the way that I think you want to be treated. I think that's really the way to go.
At the risk of sounding like a hippie, I think that love is the most important commodity. You know, genuine love.
Good.
You're just not asking for anything in return.
Well, it's okay to be a hippie. I think that quite a few people who I think are of the light who wind up finding their way into adult in whatever capacity are a bit of a, you know, usually have hippie roots to begin with, so it's okay to be a hippie.
Well, even hippies got a bad rap. I mean, you know, hippies at the time they were protesting Vietnam. Was that so wrong? I mean, everybody realizes now what a big mistake that was. You know, so I mean,
hindsight's 20/20 though.
When
you know,
you're aware of things. Hippie.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this, but this was an awesome interview, and I'd actually like to follow up. You know, in a few months and everything.
Just give me a ring. We'll hook it up. My secretary, your secretary, you know.
All right. Well, I have a feeling you're getting ready to do something. For some reason, whenever I interview people, they wind up doing something shortly after. I don't know why, but I'll be watching.
It's a launching pad. People, you know, you get to the root of what the real person's about, and it gets out there, and your fans see it, and you know, somebody tells somebody else something, and things happen. So. I hope and feel, I wish good things will happen from this for both of us.
I think, well, you know, with me, I feel just happy to be where I'm at right now, but, you know, I'm just really glad that you agreed to do this interview with me, because I think a lot of people need to hear your perspective. Your perspective is very rare considering where you've come from and where you've gone. And the situation behind why you've chosen to, you know, come out and speak out now. I think is just very current with everything that's happening in the media in regards to, you know, the cyberbullying, the cyber stalking, you know, people who worked in adult needing to come clean, you know, the fact that you're a father, you know, it's just, I'm really glad that you decided to share your story and your background.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And I hope it also intrigued you more to actually read the book that I
yes,
sent
everybody
you.
check out. Yeah, well, I will read it, and I will actually write up a review about it as soon as I do read it. But,
it reads fast. It's a fast read.
Everyone, you know, pick up Greg Lyon's book because it's only 99 cents. You can't go wrong, you know.
An ebook. That's it. And it works in any medium, your iPad, your iPhone. You can read it in your Kindle, your Nook. That's why I purposely made it. I purposely kept the price low because I think it's more important to get the message out there.
I think that's great.
Just make profit. You know, I think if people could shake their heads and say, yeah, I know where he's coming from with that. I'm glad I'm not alone. And then as a result, feel a little better about themselves. Then I think then it's a very positive thing I've done.
Well, I think that you're a very positive person, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. I will write a review, and thank you for being here today on Monica at Home interview edition.
Thanks for having me, Monica. It's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks.